Roman Reigns and the Usos vs Bron Breakker and The Vision with Paul Heyman. WWE SmackDown April 6, 2026. And this changed the entire landscape of WWE forever. Paul Heyman just betrayed Roman Reigns again, and this time there is no coming back from it. This time there is no reconciliation promo, no tearful acknowledgement, no carefully worded explanation that makes the WWE Universe gradually forgive and forget and accept that the special counsel and the tribal chief are stronger together than apart. This time Paul Heyman stood on the opposite side of the ring from Roman Reigns with Bron Breakker and The Vision beside him, and he looked the man he has called his tribal chief, the man he has devoted years of his life and his legendary mind to elevating, directly in the eyes. And he did not flinch. And if that does not make your blood boil, if that does not make you feel something deep and complicated and almost physically uncomfortable, then you have not been paying attention to the greatest manager and performer relationship in professional wrestling history. Because what died on SmackDown April 6, 2026 was not just an alliance, it was an era. And what was born in its place is something darker, something hungrier, and something that Roman Reigns, for possibly the first time in his entire run as the tribal chief, does not have a ready answer for. Let's talk about all of it. Every devastating, unmissable, earth-shattering second of it. Right now. Let's start at the foundation. Because to fully understand the magnitude of Paul Heyman's positioning on the opposite side of this match, you have to understand what Paul Heyman represents in the architecture of Roman Reigns' entire character. Roman Reigns became the greatest heel and subsequently one of the greatest performers in modern wrestling history through a combination of his own evolution and Paul Heyman's genius. That is not a controversial statement. That is the honest assessment of what happened when those two men found each other creatively. Heyman gave Roman the vocabulary, the gravitas, the philosophical framework that turned a performer who was being rejected by crowds into a character so fully realized and so compellingly drawn that even the people who hated him could not look away. The "Acknowledge Me" era is not Roman Reigns' creation alone, it is a collaboration. It is two extraordinarily talented people finding a creative frequency together that produced something neither of them could have produced separately. And for years, through the bloodline story, through the betrayals and the reconciliations and the title reigns and the WrestleMania moments, that collaboration was the spine of WWE's entire creative identity. And on April 6, Paul Heyman handed that spine to Bron Breakker. Let that land. Really let it land. Because the implications are staggering in every direction you look at them. Bron Breakker with Paul Heyman is not just a new alliance. It is a power transfer of the highest order. Paul Heyman does not lend his genius casually. He does not walk away from Roman Reigns, the most successful association of his legendary career, for someone he does not believe can be equally or greater than what Roman became under his guidance. The fact that Heyman made this move, the fact that he looked at Bron Breakker and saw something worth burning the most significant professional relationship of the last 5 years for, that alone tells you something enormous about what WWE believes Bron Breakker's ceiling is. And if Paul Heyman, the most calculating mind in this industry, believes that ceiling is high enough to justify this level of betrayal, the rest of the roster should be very, very afraid. Now let's talk about Bron Breakker himself in this match. Because the performance he delivered on April 6 alongside The Vision was the clearest statement yet that this man is ready for a level of responsibility that only a handful of performers in any generation are asked to carry. There is a physicality to Bron Breakker that is almost unfair. The combination of size, speed, and explosion that he brings to every single thing he does in that ring is the kind of athletic profile that scouts dream about and coaches spend their careers searching for. But what has been developing underneath the raw athleticism quietly, steadily, in the way that the most important growth always happens, is the psychological complexity that separates great performers from good ones. Breakker in this match was not just unleashing physical gifts. He was thinking. He was reading the moment. He was understanding that this was not just a SmackDown main event 6-man tag match. This was the match that would define the next chapter of his career. And he performed accordingly. With the kind of controlled urgency that says, I understand the stakes and I am not going to be overwhelmed by them. I am going to rise to meet them. The Vision as a unit in this context deserves serious examination because their role in this match was more important than the casual viewer might immediately recognize. Having the right people flanking Bron Breakker on the night Paul Heyman chooses to stand beside him is not incidental. It is architectural. The visual of Heyman, Breakker, and The Vision on one side of the ring against Roman Reigns and the Usos on the other side was a deliberate, carefully constructed image that communicated a specific message about power, alignment, and the future of WWE's faction landscape. The bloodline in all its iterations has defined that landscape for years. And what SmackDown April 6 showed us is that a new architecture is being constructed. New walls, new loyalties, new power centers. And at the top of that new architecture, dressed in the sharpest suit in any room and holding a microphone like a weapon, is Paul Heyman. Now let's talk about Roman Reigns. Because Roman's performance and emotional journey through this match is the part of this story that is going to be discussed, debated, and analyzed for a very long time. And it deserves every second of that analysis. Roman Reigns has been betrayed before. The history of the Bloodline story is essentially a history of loyalty tested, broken, weaponized, and occasionally restored. Roman has had Sami Zayn turn on him. He has had his cousins revolt against him. He has had Solo Sikoa build an entire counter-faction against his authority. He has weathered every version of internal rebellion that the Bloodline story has generated, and he has survived all of it because Roman Reigns at his core is the kind of performer who transforms adversity into mythology. Every betrayal in his story has ultimately made him more rather than less. But Paul Heyman is different. Paul Heyman is categorically, fundamentally, irreplaceably different from every other person who has ever turned on Roman Reigns. Because the Usos are family. Solo Sikoa is blood. Sami Zayn was a brother by adoption and affection. All of those relationships, for all their emotional weight, exist within a framework that Roman understands. Family turns on family. That is a story as old as human civilization. Roman can process that betrayal. He has a vocabulary for it. Paul Heyman is not family. Paul Heyman is something more specific and in some ways more intimate than family. He is the man who saw Roman Reigns when nobody else did. He is the man who sat across from Roman during the darkest creative period of his career and said, "I see what you could be and I am going to help you become it." He is the architect of the version of Roman Reigns that conquered everything. And when the architect of your greatness decides that your foundation is no longer worth building on, when the man who made you steps away and starts building something new with someone else, the question that follows you into every subsequent moment is the most devastating question professional wrestling can ask. Was it me? Or was it him? Roman's face throughout this match told that entire story without a single word. The moments where he spotted Heyman in the corner of his vision. The moments where Heyman's body language communicated active, strategic engagement with the opposing team rather than the passive presence of a man trying to remain neutral. The moments where Roman had to simultaneously compete at the highest level while processing a betrayal so personal it would have broken lesser performers mid-match. That is elite storytelling. That is Roman Reigns demonstrating once again that he is one of the most complete performers in the history of professional wrestling, because maintaining that level of emotional authenticity while executing physically demanding sequences at the level this match demanded is an extraordinarily difficult thing to do, and Roman made it look inevitable. The Usos in this match were everything they always are when the stakes are highest. Jimmy and Uso have spent their entire careers being criminally underappreciated in certain conversations about the greatest tag teams of their generation, and matches like April 6th's are the reminder of exactly why that underappreciation is a mistake. The Usos understand tag team psychology at a granular level that very few teams in WWE history have matched. They understand when to be explosive and when to be patient. They understand how to construct a story within the larger story of the match. And they understand how to make Roman Reigns look like the most important person in any building by being extraordinary themselves and then directing the crowd's energy upward toward their tribal chief at exactly the right moments. On April 6th, the Usos fought with everything they had. For the Bloodline. For Roman. And against a Heyman-backed opposition that had clearly been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone on the Reigns side had realized. That preparation was visible in every single strategic choicebreaker and the vision made throughout the match. This was not a team that improvised. This was a team that had been coached, drilled, and guided by the most strategically sophisticated manager in wrestling history. The targeting was specific. The double-team sequences were polished. The moments where they created isolation, keeping Roman away from the Usos, keeping the Usos away from each other, breaking down the Bloodline's communication and rhythm, all of it bore Heyman's fingerprints. His presence on the outside was not decorative. It was operational. He was running the match from the floor while Breaker and the Vision executed his vision inside the ring. And watching that operational genius directed against the man he helped build? That is the most compelling character drama SmackDown has produced in this entire calendar year. The finish of this match and its immediate aftermath is going to be the thing that defines SmackDown's direction heading into WrestleMania 42 and beyond. Because however the result landed, whoever's hand was raised, whoever was left standing in the ring when the dust cleared, the real outcome of April 6th is that the Bloodline's dominance is now facing its most sophisticated and most personally devastating challenge in years. Not just a physical challenge, a strategic challenge, an intellectual challenge. A challenge constructed by the one man on earth who knows every weakness in Roman Reigns' armor because he helped build the armor in the first place. Roman Reigns has beaten everyone who has come for him with power. He has beaten everyone who has come for him with speed. He has beaten everyone who has come for him with numbers. But nobody has ever come for him with Paul Heyman. Nobody has ever sent his own genius against him. And that is what Bron Breakker represents now. Not just a great young performer with a Hall of Fame bloodline and a frightening physical profile. He represents the weaponization of Roman's greatest asset. He represents Paul Heyman choosing the future over the past. And he represents the most dangerous question anyone has ever posed to the tribal chief's reign. What do you do when the person who knows you best decides you are finished? Tell me in the comments right now, is this the beginning of the end of Roman Reigns' era in WWE? Does Bron Breakker with Paul Heyman become the most dominant force in SmackDown history? And can the Usos hold the bloodline together while Roman faces the most personal betrayal of his entire career? Drop every thought below. Share this video immediately because every single WWE fan in your life needs to be in this conversation. This is Wrestling News CC, subscribe right now and turn on every notification. Because the Bloodline era just entered its most dangerous and most emotionally devastating chapter yet, and we will be here breaking down every single moment of the fallout.